was announced recently that Wheel of Fortune in Australia and the UK will be coming back. Like Jeopardy, both shows will be hosted by the same person, this time in Graham Norton. And like Jeopardy in the UK and Australia, they will be taping in England. I'm assuming this is for a trial run just to see if they work in Australia, and if they do, the production will more than likely move to Australia with different hosts than Stephen Fry and Graham Norton, who will host Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune respectively. For this video, I'm going to take a step back into the past, the rich lore of Wheel of Fortune Australia. To be honest, this video come out because I've been binge watching a lot of Australian Wheel of Fortune, and I gotta say, it's probably the second best version of Wheel of Fortune that's ever been. Better than the UK version, better than the Filipino version, better than the French-Canadian version. The only thing that surpasses it is the superior American version, but that's neither here nor there. For this video, I'm going to take a look at all of the hosts of Wheel of Fortune Australia, give my thoughts about them, give them a letter grade from A to F. And I hope you enjoy it. So, get ready, Australia. It's your favorite game. Let's spin the wheel. Ernie Sigle was the first host, and he was probably the fourth host that I've watched, besides Burgess, Elliott, and Tony Barber. As for Ernie Sigle himself as a host, I think he came off as rather abrasive as a host. He didn't have the charming nature of Elliott or Burgess or Barber, or later on, even Emde or Larry Emde. Like, he seemed like the insult comedian type, even though that's not who he was. I just don't think he meshed well with Wheel of Fortune, at least in my opinion. But he did well enough in those first 3 years to give the show some legs before he passed the baton to the next host. I don't know. He just doesn't do it for me. So I'll give him a C grade for the longevity. But he's somebody whose episodes I wouldn't flock back to. Each country has its dean of game shows. Like, when you think of a game show host, you think of that one person. The original dean of game shows here in the US was Bill Cullen. In the UK, it was Bruce Forsyth. In my opinion, in Australia, that moniker belongs to John Burgess. Burgess helmed Wheel of Fortune the longest, from 1984 to 1996. After he was essentially screwed over by Seven, he would go on to have a brilliant career hosting various other game shows, most notably Burgo's Catchphrase. Burgo was personable, kind, knew what he was doing, even during a massive slip-up. There's the infamous clip of Burgess going to his position and falling down, where Adriana and Deeks essentially had to come to his aid. He would give the deadpan, and welcome. And then later I say, okay, who polished the floor? I enjoyed Burgess's run as host. There's not that many episodes up on YouTube because hardly anybody recorded it off of TV. And the thing about Australian game shows is we don't know what exists or not. Mainly due to the broadcasting practices of Australia. As for the show itself and his hosting, impeccable. And if I were to do a top 5 international and domestic Wheel of Fortune hosts, you could make a damn good case for John Burgess to be number 1. In my opinion, though, he is a solid A. One of the best to ever do it. Tony Barber got put into a really impossible task. He had to follow up John Burgess, who got, like I said, screwed over, and he got 6 months to show what he can do. He did well. I like Tony Barber as a host. Granted, I like him a lot more on Sale of the Century than anything else he did, but I don't know. I guess the love and adoration for Burgess was so strong that he could have given a top tier hosting job and it wouldn't have been enough. Like I said, impossible task. I'm going to throw him a B grade because I do like Tony Barber a lot. And he also gets bonus points for handling it with style and grace, especially since he actually showed up to do the changeover from his hosting to Rob Elliott's hosting. And he even said that him hosting Wheel of Fortune was the biggest mistake of his career. And honestly, that's kind of what happened because his career never recovered. Still liked him in here, though. Rob Elliott is an enigma, I'll say. I like his hosting up until a certain year. And he even admitted that he just was there for the check because he seemed so disillusioned with everything. And I think that was because he also got word that they're going to screw him over like they screwed John Burgess over. But when he was hosting, he essentially followed the Burgess playbook and did it well in his own deadpan style. Like, he wasn't an experienced broadcaster like Burgess was or Barber was or even Ernie Sigle was. He was fresh out of water and he handled it well. I'm going to throw him a B grade like Tony Barber, but for a different reason. And the reason he does not get A is because of those last 6 months that he was hosting. I've said on this channel before about my feeling about Bob Barker coasting the last 3 years of his run on The Price is Right, but that's due to age. Elliott coasted those last 6 months of his run due to the fact he was a dead man walking. Shame. I like Rob Elliott a lot, and the way that Seven screwed him over, he left the television business entirely. And I wonder what he's doing nowadays. And we have the Rolf Benershka equivalent here in Steve Oemke, somebody who was way out of his depth. Granted, Rob Elliott was kind of out of his depth, but he managed to work through it. Steve Oemke did not work through it. Sure, he got better later on, but those first 2 months were really, really rough. He just didn't have it. And I think the problem with Oemke is that, once again, he fell into the Barber trap, where he had to follow somebody who was genuinely liked and admired by the viewing audience. Oddly enough, the show did experience some high ratings because during his run, he had the longest running champion. And I think his run lasted for like 13, 14 days because Wheel of Fortune Australia has an unlimited, you can stay on the champion as long as you're not defeated. And I don't know what to say about Oemke that I haven't said before. Stiff. You could tell he's just not comfortable at all up there. I'm going to give him a D. Like, he wasn't an abject failure like Rolf Benershka was. He didn't go up on stage in case of a tie and said, I don't know what's going on here. And at least he didn't have that going for him. Oemke might be, if I were to do like a top, I can't do a top 5 worst for for Wheel of Fortune hosts around the world. But Oemke would be high up on that list. He was clearly the worst of the Australian hosts. But that could be chalked up due to being very ill at ease and being from... He was like a travel reporter, and then being selected to be a host, and that is such a big jump that You couldn't see him get away with it. Larry Emde is the go-to right now. If you have a show that's in trouble, Larry Emde is your go-to replacement. Like, he did it for Oemke when the show came back in 2006 after it sat out most of 2005. And he recently did it again because Andrew O'Keefe decided to be an idiot. And now Larry Emde is now hosting The Chase Australia. And doing quite well, I might add, even though his question reading is a bit slower than Andrew O'Keefe's. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get back to that in a future video. However, for Larry Emde in the last 6 months of the original run of Wheel of Fortune, did rather well. I enjoyed his candor, and even though he seemed a little bit tired, because I do believe around this time he was doing double duty, because he was doing this as well as Price is Right, but you couldn't tell unless you looked really close. And I just find Emde to be great. It reminded me of Burgess' hosting. I don't know what it is. It seems like the first, third, and fifth hosts of Australian Wheel of Fortune were okay to not good at all. And the second, fourth, and sixth hosts were actually pretty darn good. Kind of compare it to the Star Trek movies. Like, if you remember Star Trek, the first movie was okay, the second one was really good, so was the third one. Fourth one was good too, the fifth one stunk. And the sixth was sort of a return to form. Larry Emde was the return to form. I'm going to give him a B here, mainly because he really didn't have much time. He had like about 5-6 months, and then the show got canceled. I think if the show ran all the way through 2006, it could have been like a B plus, A minus grade, but for a B is fair for him. In 2008, the show got revived, sent to 9, had a potential of $1 million payout, and this guy, and Tim Campbell as host. He was okay. I mean, about as well as Sigle grade-wise. I'll throw him a C. There was only that one episode out there that's on YouTube, but from what I heard, the show was an abject failure. Like, sure, the first couple of episodes got like 700,000 viewers, but then the number absolutely cratered, and the show was gone in 5 weeks. Woof. I'm going to throw him a C just because I only had that one episode to go by, and I thought he was okay. I don't know how well he did in those other episodes, but I don't think he would have had time to improve or get worse. 25 episodes is just not enough. And that does it. That is my shortened thoughts on all of the Wheel of Fortune Australia hosts. If I were to do like a certain ranking, Burgess, Elliott, Emde, Barber, Sigle, Campbell, Oemke. There you go. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you like this video, leave a comment below, thumbs up the video. Tell me who your favorite Wheel of Fortune Australia host is. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you really want to show your support and throw a couple bob to us, get your name in the credits like these wonderful people right here, become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/GameShowGumbo. I am Cindy Seidelman, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Tra.